Hello and welcome to ARC360's The Future in Focus digital event series. Before starting, we'd just like to thank our corporate partners, BASF, BMS, CAPS, Copart, Emacs, Integral, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Mercer, Nationwide Vehicle Recovery Assistance, S&G Response, and Sherwin-Williams, as well as our partners, Aztec, the Green Park Specialists, Indasa, Prasco, and the Innovation Group. Thanks, and we hope you enjoy the following webinar.
So first and foremost, the disclaimer before we go too far. The views and opinions expressed during the following webinar are those of the individual contributor and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the contributor's employer, organisation, committee, or other group or individual. Please respect any all contributions, and we encourage you to join the conversation via the interactive functions available. All right. So let's get ourselves started. There we go. All right, guys, so thanks very much for joining us, and we'll just have a little round robin now, come round to each one of you, just get a little update on the world as it stands according to. So, Jill, I'll come across to you if I may. We had Phil join us, your body shop manager, a couple of weeks ago, probably a good month or so ago now, on one of our weekly webinars, giving us a bit of an insight into Parkway. But yeah, if you could just, anyone who didn't hear that, just fill us in, tell us a little bit more about Parkway and yourself.
Okay, so I'm Jill, one of 3 directors for Parkway Prestige. We are approved a number of manufacturers, Volkswagen Group, including Seat, Skoda, Audi, and I'm having brain freeze.
You're going to forget one there, aren't you, Jill? You'll be in trouble.
Volkswagen, the main one. We've just become Tesla approved, and it's challenging. It's certainly challenging because of the technology, the changes. The drivers are different, the vehicles are very different. In terms of the actual bodywork, there is no difference, but the actual structure of the vehicle is very different. I've driven one once, not really for me, but thank you, Mike. Somebody just sent a message saying I missed off the Volkswagen commercial. So, yeah, it's challenging.
Great stuff. We will come on to all the details out, and just in case anyone's kind of looking, thinking, what's that, Jill? It's your dog, isn't it? And you said if you weren't given the full attention, there'd be yapping in the background. So
yeah, definitely.
So there you go.
I've said this is my first one, and it's insanely nerve-wracking now at this point in time, but it will ease up and I will get in the flow of things as everybody else starts talking. So apologies for that, kind of rough sort of start up. Thank you, Paul.
Absolutely fine. And it's the first dog we've had on one of the ARC360 webinars. So thank you. Martin, I'll come across to you. Love the backdrop, Martin. Tell us you're really not there, because we're all jealous right now.
Well, I'd like to say it was my back garden, but it's not. So there we go. And I'd like to say it was my next holiday location, but that's not either. So nothing planned yet. But yeah, nice to be here. Nice to see so many good faces and friends as well, and network popping up on here today. So great to see that. It's been a challenging time, 12 months down the line for a number of us working from home. I think we said earlier on the call, how many times have we actually physically been out on business in our cars, etc. Been a tough challenge, but no more for the industry, no more for the body shops. Currently at the moment with the road traffic down as much as it is at the moment. Although some green shoots, we're seeing some green shoots, road traffic up to about 73%, I think last week. Looking good for the future. Let's hope so. So yeah, looking forward to this. Martin Burbage, as you know, body and paint manager for the UK NSC, Jaguar Land Rover.
Great stuff. Thank you very much indeed, Martin. And Dean, over to you. A busy time at Thatcham, and we're going to come on to it, but a week away from the introduction of IIR. But just tell us a little bit about what life's been like with yourselves recently.
Yeah, hi everybody. Dean Lambeth, Head of Repair Sector Services at Thatcham Research. I am actually, for the first time in over 4 months, in the office today. Can't tell you how exciting that is. Yeah, like everybody else, it's been 12 months when we were expecting it to be 3 weeks. I think has caught us all a bit off guard. Slowly we have become more familiar and more used to it, but can't wait to kick it into touch and get back to the social aspects of the business as well as the formalities of doing things like this, Mark.
Great stuff. Lovely, Dean. Right, so I will bounce it straight back at you then, if I may. So we are, as I said, a week away from the introduction of IIR. So what does it mean for the sector? If anyone's kind of, again, had their head buried in the sand, what is it, first and foremost? What does it mean for the sector? And, what is the kind of impact going to be?
Yeah, sure. So the IIR, as we've become very familiar with, is actually the insurance industry requirements for managing ADAS in repair. The intent of the IIR has been to create clarity about when and how to manage ADAS. With over 6 million cars on the roads today with ADAS fitted, and knowing it will be fitted to every new car from 2022, it really does have to be seen as a consideration at the start of every repair job, and managed effectively throughout. It was actually introduced July 2020, and while there were body shops and others who were able to meet it immediately, it was right to introduce an implementation period, a period to allow industry to become familiar with the requirements and put practices into place to be able to comply with them, which was recommended to be 9 months through to the end of March 2021. So the end of that recommended implementation period is now just a matter of days away. And while there are still undoubtedly some challenges and some body shops that have some challenges with it, there's no doubt that many have mobilised themselves, become familiar with it, enabled their businesses to deal with it in one way or another, and we should see success of the IR moving forward.
Great stuff. And again, you kind of touched upon it there, but are we ready? What's are we likely to see a change from one day to the next, i.e. kind of, when we wake up the following day on the 1st of April, is something different noticeably, or is it just a case that we're sort of continuing to work through it?
No, I suspect you won't. It's not. I don't think we're going to see balloons in the air and party poppers everywhere on April the 1st, Fool's Day. No, I don't expect to see dramatic changes. So I think there have been many body shops and insurers working with body shops to make sure this is as smooth a transition as possible. And the whole intent of the IR is purely just to provide the clarity. ADAS is a safety feature fitted to modern cars that needs to be managed in repair. Body shops can make a decision, invest in the capability to do it in-house, or find third-party providers that can support to complete the task for you. But either way around, it has to be managed. You wouldn't give a car back to the customer without the brakes joined back up when you've carried out a repair. You wouldn't give a car back to a customer without an ADAS feature reinstated before you give it back to them.
Fair enough. Yeah, absolutely, you wouldn't. And Martin, I'll come to you next, if I may, kind of not necessarily directly on the IIR, but on this subject matter. From JLR side, this kind of ADAS has been around for a long time. And tell us a little bit about your approach, I suppose, over the years.
Well, I think that it's developing at such a pace as everything. And obviously, when we first started out on this journey with ADAS, it was, which Dean will probably nod, it was, we were talking about windscreens, but it's so much more now, and the difference on systems and the varying degree of processes required to reset ADAS it differs between manufacturer and model, and then age of model. You know, we see massive changes every year. There's something new. So if you're static systems or your dynamic systems, you know, even those dynamic systems, the processes for a new 21 model year will change, and this is why you need to be up to date with your research on your methodology and your training. Your use of the technical repair manuals is the most important thing, I think. So following those recommended guidelines is always going to be the key. But it's about the use of that, and it's about continual use of that. And I think I'll maybe pick up on that as we go through it, and that will run, you know, maybe be part of the theme. But, you know, gone are the days of just printing things out. And I'll mention that again, because I think this is where it's going to be going in the future.
Yeah, and that's one of those things you mentioned to me in preparation of this. You sort of mentioned gone are the days of printing out pieces of paper and following methods that way, because it is evolving so quickly. So, so Jill, from a repairer's standpoint, you know, you kind of, I suppose, you know, feel all of this at the sharp end of things. And how, you know, how has your world been impacted in terms of what Dean's spoken about, you know, the ADAS side of things?
I think for us as a repairer, we do move quite quickly. As ourselves, Barbary Prestige, we have invested heavily in technology. We do subcontract out some things, particularly in terms of the ADAS settings, but it's moving at a pace that I find can be quite difficult to keep up with, because you often find you're the latter part of the stage where the information's coming through. So the vehicles are developed, released, there's an accident damage. I mean, we've had stuff in that's sort of driven out from the showroom on the very first day. Somebody's had an accident. You can't get the parts, you can't get repair methods. And I take what Martin's saying, we will move away from the days where we print them off and you sit there and you read through pieces of paper going, oh, what comes next? But I would like to see the body shop world technology moving quicker and information coming through faster.
And there's nods of agreement there from you as well, Dean.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to move the industry, and the industry is moving into a digital expert world. It's going to be difficult for some of the technicians, but that's just a difficulty that we all have to recognise. We all have to take on board. And we have to support those technicians it's like professional development. It's not just the technical skills, it's the rest of the capability as well. And you'll hear me constantly today, training, because we're no longer living in an environment or a world with the cars around us, with the technology that we've got to use to repair those cars. No longer can we do it based on skills that are outdated. And that's technical and soft skills.
Yeah, good, great point. And so, you know, are we, as an industry, are we keeping pace with technology? Can we keep pace with technology at the moment? And by that, you know, are we doing a good job in some areas? Are we kind of grey areas in others? Martin, do you want to sort of pick that one up?
Yeah, I think we've got to look at where we move forward. The vehicle technology has moved on more than the last 10 years than it has in probably over 50. And it's increasingly picking up pace year on year. So the development of of a vehicle, design features are created, they're developed, and they're developed due to environment, they're developed due to safety, evolution, customer choice and experience, and they're designed really. They're designed, then they're placed through engineering, irrespective of what manufacturer. And they're engineered, they're manufactured, and then we have to deal with the repair. And then we've got repair manual, repair methodology, repair manual. So those things take place, and once those things are in place, that then defines your training requirement. And there is always going to be, and as you said, Jill, it's the pace of when the vehicle hits the market to the availability of repair methodology, training, etc. And especially probably outside in the non-approved, non-authorized repair network, which will find that much harder. But you got to remember that the pace is moving. It's so fast, so it's so difficult to catch up with these things. And what the design features that were developed for premium vehicles, they might be designed for premium vehicles, but a year later they're not. They're in the everyday run-of-the-mill vehicles. So it's that pace that's going to be the problem going forward. I think it's keeping up that, and it's always going to be. And I don't think it's going to get any better that, because the speed of things that get developed, design and technology has to be engineered, manufactured, method created, and trained. That's the way I see it. Anyway, it's not going to get any easier, I don't think.
Yeah, and Jill, I mean, the same question to you in the sense that you already kind of alluded to it in one of the responses you gave a moment ago. But are we keeping? And I industry-wise, it's a very generic, sweeping statement. But are we keeping pace with things? And are there certain areas where we as repairers, and I say we, I use that the royal we, but are there areas that we kind of are doing really well in, and others that we know there could be improvements made, if you like?
I think the majority of the manufacturers have got I think they've got their training fairly well organised. But the availability of courses can often be problematic. And certainly over the last 12 months, we've seen restrictions. Tesla being a perfect example. They've changed how they've had to do their courses because everything was going abroad. You can't travel now. And I think when you bring it in, we've got a big age difference at the moment between sort of the youthful age, as in 20 or 2025, and then we've got some older guys who are probably 50s plus. There's a gap in the market. And I think, sorry, I wasn't overly well prepared for this question, but I think there's a point between the kids leaving school and needing to get training, and the training is very basic. It's back to the old panel paint, MET, and then you've got the requirement for the actual vehicles that are on the road. And I don't know the statistics, but I would imagine that there are more vehicles on the road with ADAS than there are without now, or certainly with some kind of safety feature. And the basic training that you can get just doesn't cover where they need to be. Does that make sense? So you're having to go then down the manufacturer route. I mean, we've worked with Volkswagen for an awfully long time. Their training courses are excellent in every area. Tesla, they're very much vehicle focused, whereas Volkswagen have the whole, thing. They've got the vehicles, they've got the technology, they've got the customer facing, and that's very, very important.
Okay. And Dean, I can see again nodding your head in certain instances there in alignment with Jill's thoughts, and you will see the industry as Thatcham researchers kind of far more holistically, I suppose it's fair to say. And so would you? And again, you've previously you've expressed opinions on where the industry is in terms of skills and the need requirement for new skills and things. But are we keeping pace with this vehicle technology? Are we in a kind of a place where we really do need to push ahead with certain areas, and other areas actually we are doing okay, so to speak?
I think take the market, take the sector and segment it really, Mark. I feel it's important. You have to excuse me. I've got a croaky throat. I think it's important we acknowledge the challenge that the new technologies are bringing, because it's not as easy as to say is a body shop keeping pace with it. It's not that easy. It's not as simple as going keep pace. The last kind of major technological evolution a body shop had to deal with was going from solvent based to waterborne paint. And now in the same breath, we're talking about EVs, ADAS, potentially semi-automated driving just around the corner. We don't even talk about the connected car that much. It's not really spoken about in terms of repair, but it will have an impact, undoubtedly. So I think it's scary to think about the skills and equipment investment required, but it now has to be brought into the thinking. It's no longer acceptable not to think about it. And I kind of put it this way, Mark. It's unreasonable to expect customers in any industry to have complex supply chains. And this is unfortunately where the industry may be heading. And if we think about it simple, we talk about EVs and we talk about ADAS, but think about a body shop without a paint booth. Would it be reasonable to expect a customer to take their car for repair to a body shop to repair the accident and then have to take it to a secondary supplier to refinish the paintwork afterwards? It just doesn't happen today. I'm sure it was something that happened at some point in the past, and then body shops incorporated paint booths and painting capabilities within their business, either them themselves or with a supplier that supplies them rather than the customer. And you've got to think about this in the same way. Now we're talking about ADAS and EV, because no longer is it niche. It's become mainstream. 6 million ADAS vehicles requiring some form of calibration post-accident on the roads today. EVs, okay, were smaller volumes, but they're now outselling combustion engine vehicles every single month. So while I know it's a high cost, it's not an option any longer to think, shall I or shan't I? It's hard to say, because I realise definitely, especially with the last year, how it's been a struggle for body shops. But it's becoming a cost of being able to do business. That training and investment in equipment is very fast becoming an essential cost rather than a chosen cost.
And I suppose all of these areas are certainly areas for some time we've had sight of, and we've kind of been focusing on. I think it's almost lots has happened, I suppose, between in the last few years. Let's be honest, pandemic aside, everything else behind it, changes in regulations in terms of 2030 deadline and stuff. So it is, it now is moving at a rate of knots towards us, and that's undoubtedly happening. So in terms of, and I'll come back to you on this one, Jill. So you've already kind of referenced Tesla. And I know when Phil was on, he said kind of how you'd been working on that approval for 3 years, I think it was. And obviously there's been a significant disruption in terms of how you get your people trained to attain that kind of level of approval. So can you just, has that had implications for the business as a whole? Not necessarily just the Tesla approval, but has that had knock-on implications for you across all your approvals?
In terms of EVs, yes, because they are completely different to deal with. I must admit, I don't know huge amounts. My husband does drive a Tesla. I've been out in it once. I found it really hard to drive. But in terms of how it's affected us at work, you have to segregate the vehicles. To me, I have a big problem with electricity. It's like I won't do any electrics at home or anything. So I always have concerns about, the batteries, disposal, the risk of electric shock. We've all had to do electric shock training, even front of house. Every single person on the premises has to understand how these vehicles work. And I'm sorry, I'm digressing from your question again. So just ask me the question again, because otherwise I'll go off on a tangent on where I'm taking this.
I was talking about your training over the past 12 months in terms of, there's obviously been some kind of disruption getting technicians approved, certainly for the Tesla with that in mind. But were there other, do you think it's kind of, is it now a case of catch up, or have things kind of smoothed out anyway?
For us, it's smoothed out. We've done most of the technical training prior to the shutdown anyway, so that was quite good. We were 2 probably more than 3/4 of the way there. Over the last year, we've had to adapt. They've had to adapt because we can't travel. You can't go down to any of the training centres, and that's fine. So we got the approval probably, I don't know, maybe 3 months ago. But we've had to make significant changes in the body shop. But like Dean said, you have to make these changes. You have to adapt. And he said to me about, you've got to do the electric shock training. I was like, really? I'm not even going to drive them, never mind, But no, we all have to do them.
Yeah, absolutely. And Martin, I'll come across to you then. So, again, from your side, so undoubtedly that this transition, the electric vehicle transition is upon us. Dean's referenced the numbers. We've all seen the numbers in terms of registrations, etc. It is growing. It's taking off rapidly. So how and what do we need? And again, I use the royal we, but as a repair community, ecosystem, and that's everyone in the supply chain, what do we need to prepare?
Yeah. It's let's say it's going to be challenging and an opportunity as well. I think from a manufacturer, running a body and paint program in terms of its network capability, it's all about making sure that network is completely EV ready, and making sure the training is in place, and the repair processes and management processes to be able to be capable of repairing the volume, etc. going forward. And obviously, we've been very sort of public in our announcements in the volume that we're looking to develop over the next few years, and that's going to need some development. We've worked very hard over the last couple of years in terms of electrical vehicle and training, etc. for all the technicians. We've got a number of technicians, a huge amount of technicians in MET, panel and paint, etc. But you're looking at something taking an MET technician. Could the whole journey from a level 2 MET technician up to a full electric vehicle technician could be something in the region of about 21 days, maybe 20 plus of training assessments. So there's a lot of development in training, irrespective of probably of any brand. I think there'll be a number of specialist tooling and speed pieces of equipment. But there's, as we develop this, there will be things that we couldn't do to vehicles in terms of practices within booths, temperatures, moving vehicles around, moving high voltage vehicles around the workshop, moving high vehicles around inside of paint booths, moving them on and off of recovery trucks. All those things that could be completely different than what they were before. Moving them between a retailer maybe where it's or a dealer where it's been powered down, or it's had some electrical work done. All those things change, and I think testing of the voltage testing pre and post the repair, all things that have to be done that are new. So I think once again, it's all around the technical repair method. Without the use of that and the ability to use that with diagnostics on a daily basis, I'll mention it again. It's not going to be the case of a VDA print out a repair method and handing it to somebody anymore. It's a totally different thing. And maybe within some number of we'll move on to some discussion around some of the skill sets, etc. later. But that's where I see it anyway.
Well, let's jump into that skill set conversation, shall we? So you've referenced there potentially different kind of roles in that supply chain, or in terms of how a repair may work moving ahead. So are we looking at completely new skill sets for the future? What areas could we be looking at?
I think an MET technician will go in some way to becoming electric vehicle technicians, but at what level ultimately? I think looking at it, apprenticeships in electric vehicle will be the key to this. I would see that to be the next thing. It's about growing your own, isn't it? Bring along apprenticeships to do this. If you think about the amount of electric vehicles that we will have, if we've moved from, I think it was 56,000 to 86,000 in 1 year vehicles, and every manufacturer is proposing the volume by 2025, etc. The amount of electrical technicians or electrical vehicle technicians that we're going to require is going to be substantial. And I think from a body shop point of view, a body shop that has a number of manufacturer approvals, or especially groups, maybe it will be a roaming role. It will be a very, very sought after role for a technician that's probably gone through all the manufacturer approval training, but very costly, lots of investment in that. I don't know what the rest of you think on that one.
I was going to say, exciting times. And Dean, come across to you on that one then. So some interesting thoughts there from Martin.
Yeah, let's not forget traditional skills. They're still very much required, but definitely new skills are. I think also as a trustee of AutoRaise, it'd probably be amiss of me not to highlight the skills gap and ageing workforce. And Jill alluded to it earlier. She's got a gap in her workforce. She can see some youth, but she can also see this age gap problem that's within the workforce. And I think it's reported somewhere that it's an average age of around 48 for your typical technician in a body shop. And having done some research myself, that's almost a decade difference in any other engineering organisation. The average age of an engineer being 38 to 40. So we've definitely got a problem. I think also you're going to regret you came to me on this one, Mark, because this is where I sit on my thing and start just waffling on. We've for so long focused heavily on proving competence to ensure repairs are safe. But I know for many, this has been at the expense of developing these new skills. It's been articulated as a challenge. Do I run down and get my reaccreditation, or do I send my technician on an ADAS course? Still got the cost of doing both is high. At the same time, apprentice numbers have fallen dramatically in the body shop sector. And this slowing of investment in development, COVID's just literally, taken it by storm and made it twice the problem that it was. I just think personally, I don't think the industry can allow it to define the sector going forward. I know I and many others are keen to see professional development programs come in to replace this recycling of competence. And even more importantly, for this industry to get back into investing in apprenticeships in a big way. Thatcher Research and AutoRaise are and will remain here to help any business who can see the need and has that desire to invest in development programs. They're absolutely essential to safeguard the future of the sector. And just put that on that. The sort of stuff that Martin's talking about, I know Thatcher Research have been working on that heavily. We haven't sat idly by during this period. We haven't seen an opportunity lost. We spent a lot of time developing our digital capability and our digital platforms, eScribe, and importantly on this subject, eAcademy, modern online blended learning material. This helps the body shops because it reduces their overall cost of access. It allows them to maintain productivity because it takes the delegate away from the body shop site, while putting as much of it online as possible, still recognizing that in the sort of world that we live in and sort of technology that we're dealing with, it's important that you have that experience of a knowledgeable trainer helping you with the most complex attributes. But there is definitely a move to move some of this stuff online. And back to AutoRaise, we've just launched Mission Possible. as we seek to create 2,000 new apprentice positions by 2025. And I and the rest of the trustees of Auto Race are eager to talk to any body shop that's willing to help us meet that target. The time is now. We can't allow a COVID crisis to define the sector. We have to get back and build this sector back better than it was previously.
Great message there, Dean. Super stuff. Thank you very much indeed. And Jill, kind of, I suppose, moving the conversation on and relating it also to what you've kind of said about that gap in the workforce that you experience where you are. So are we kind of looking for a different skill set, i.e. to fill that gap? Are you looking at, somebody with IT skills rather than any background in the automotive industry? Is that kind of the ideal fit? Can you get an IT consultant in to come in and help the business in that way now?
Possibly. My gut feeling was no, possibly. I think one of the problems, and this is probably going off again slightly at a tangent, the insurers, the rate of pay doesn't warrant, right, let me get this in the right way. We are governed by what we pay the technicians, by what the insurance pay us. And the rate of pay from the insurance hasn't increased significantly enough to be able to support the level of training. So we invest heavily in technology, training, staff. We pay all our guys well. We have a really, really good, strong team. The level of training, in my opinion, that's going to be required to support the EV market. And I have to say, I do have reservations about the 2030 target because I don't think the infrastructure is there in general to change everybody over to an electric vehicle. And I think it will be problematic because you're going to have a massive mix of vehicles on the road. I struggle, I've said before, I struggle to drive an EV, particularly on the Tesla, because as soon as you take your foot off, the whole thing pulls back. I like a petrol engine. I want to put my foot down, press and go. And I just feel that the balance between the sectors isn't quite there. We're looking at repairing high-end vehicles where we've invested heavily in training, and you've got the insurance company on the end of the fence saying, oh, £27 an hour, and you're just like, we should be paying our technicians £27 an hour. The level of training that they go through now in time is as long as a doctor to become qualified, if you take the time of the apprenticeship. So there's imbalance. And I think the whole market is going to need a shake-up.
It certainly looks like we could be heading that way with everything that's coming at us. That's for sure. And I'm sure that repairers, the Landover, would kind of support your view there, perhaps, Jill, in terms of those thoughts. And it's something that we've just got to continue with and continue to work our way through, really. So as we go. So, Martin, I'll come back to you if I may. So, do you think? And again, you've got your obviously JLR approved network that you work with, but do you think the market's going to segment even further? Do you think technology is going to be the catalyst for that? And almost by default, are we already seeing that anyway?
I think we are to a degree. I think there's been a number of changes, and we mentioned about the technology moving it forward at such a pace. So that's always going to drive that to start with. So when we're talking about how quickly that information is available to non-approved body shops in the training and that sort of stuff, you're always going to have a gap. And I think that gap there will always be a gap. There will always be a lag. And let's be honest, in terms of, we're in an industry where service departments have always possibly taken the lead, and then body shop, it's our industry. I love our industry. Been in it since I was since a boy. Body shop sometimes comes second, but so it's always a little bit slower to get that information out. So by the time that information has gone to non-authorised body shops, it's always going to be a little bit later. I think there will be some segmentation because of the technology. And I suppose this will always be the case until some of the standardization kicks in, and I think we mentioned it before, Dean, about, and Mark, the VHS, the Betamax, the Philips. For anybody that can remember the VCR, Those were the three brands that all tested and built VCR machines, and they decided on a platform, and it was then the VHS. So I think there will be some standardization, and I think when you get standardization, that's going to take a few years. But I think until that kicks in, I think there will always be some segmentation, I think.
Yeah. And I know, Dean, last time you joined us on the webinar, you had kind of strong thoughts around, businesses will find their kind of, their remit, if you like, what they're working on, where they should be. And I can't remember the exact terminology that you used, but it was kind of find your place and stick with it. And that still stands. Oh, you're on mute there, Dean.
I muted myself to cough and didn't unmute myself. Fundamentally, I mean, we are definitely already seeing market segmentation changing. I think we've been seeing it for some time. I think it's becoming more transparent over the last few years. We're seeing more medium-sized, mid-sized kind of groups materialise, seeing less single-site operators. It's not to say we don't still have a high propensity for small repair businesses, but we've certainly seen that change in mix across the sector. But back to the point, yeah, I do feel that gone are the days that accepting every job that comes into the workshop are gone, long gone. The investment for one business required to cover all bases is just too great, and it's not feasible. And if I were running a body shop today, I would be doing my market research. I'd be doing my analysis of where my competition is moving, and I would find a segment, and I would make some very, very tough management decisions, of course. But I would define what my business should focus on, and I would focus on that purely, and accept that that's a bit difficult and challenging for some work providers, undoubtedly. But if you are still a relatively small size business trying to repair all the various makes and models of vehicles and all the various technologies today, you want to hide into nothing, because I just don't think it can be done. And I said either choose your path via VMs, via their brands, or choose it via a technology route and decide if you're going to do. Are you going to focus on electric vehicles? Are you going to focus on autonomous vehicles? Are you going to focus on complex materials? And find a path and go with it.
Great stuff. Thanks, Dean. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that that thought is echoed by many. And again, I think it's one of those things that's kind of, the momentum for it has been building over the years, of deciding, what you are as a business, really. And Jill, I'll come to you because Martin touched upon some very interesting things in terms of perhaps the whole claims process, maybe bits of the claim or bits of repair that aren't necessarily there at the moment. Vehicles, I don't know, perhaps becoming, needing to be moved. Dean's already mentioned the connectivity side of things. How is it kind of impacting from at the end of the day, you guys are prestige repairers, you're at the, sort of cutting edge of all of this. Is your repair process being sort of implicated in any way, shape or form? Is the claims process changing from when you get involved at all at the moment? And is it different to how, a normal ICE vehicle might be?
No, the process for claims is the same. The way we deal with it in-house is different, but the process is the same.
And
sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, sorry, in terms of how you deal with it in-house, then can you expand on that a little bit for us?
What do you mean in terms of which area?
How has that differed, or how's that different now, if you like?
I think, as we were saying earlier, we've all had to have electric vehicle training, so we understand. And again, electrics is not my thing. It's something I am fearful of. thought of driving around on a battery to me frightens me to death. But I think we've all had to have training, you know. Come back to me on that, because I am going to struggle to put that in words at the moment, because I've got that much going around in my head from what the other guys have said that it's just going to fall out as waffle. So come back to me on that if you don't mind.
No worries. Right, Martin, I'm going to put you on the spot instead. So,
sorry.
Electric vehicles, specialist materials, skill shortages. We've got a lot. It's all coming our way, has landed. But what's next? Is it kind of more of the same, or are we being sort of blindsided? Is something about to kind of creep up on us and go, hey, you didn't see that one coming, did you?
I think, EV is coming at a very, very special rate, isn't it? Let's be honest. So it's coming up very, very quickly. We've got to really, going back to, mentioned before, we've got to look at how we develop our young people, bringing young people into the industry, looking at some of the things that we do, apprentice programs, like I said, some great initiatives going on call, Dave Rees with his School of Thought. I'm going to give him a thumbs up there. We've got to get young people into the industry. Now, some of these guys will not be what they were before. Some of these guys and girls will not be the type of people they were in certain roles. But the role, what we require in terms of role within our industry is a lot wider now. It's not just that traditional, the panel guy, the painter, and the MET guy. It's going to be much bigger than this. And I think that is the biggest key is going to be the funding, isn't it? We like I said, we design vehicles, we engineer them, we manufacture vehicles, and they are laden with technology. The way we're going to build our bodies are going to be so technology focused and so advanced, and we are not going to keep up with that if we don't get the people involved with this. And I think this is going to be one of the challenges. It's got to be funded. We need funding, and we need to get some great talented people through the doors back into our industry.
And Dean, you're part of that mission. I know that you've already said about auto raise, but and you kind of dropped in connected cars right at the outset, and you said it's sort of something that we've not mentioned a great deal. Do you think that's the one thing that is kind of, lurking in the background that perhaps we're not fully wholeheartedly focused on at the moment?
Yeah, I really, truly do believe that's the case, Mark. So your original question, more of the same or something different? Well, I definitely think more of the same. More ADAS without doubt, more EVs for sure, absolute certainty, more complex materials, stiffer structures, softer body panels, all of these increasing and adapting at huge pace. But more connected vehicles is the thing that we've kind of got our head in the sand at the moment. I say we as the broader we, I mean the whole ecosystem is kind of looking at it. When we think about the new Car2X communication, it's going to be a real game changer when cars exchange real-time data with other equipped vehicles and combines that information with other road infrastructure data, such as traffic lights, to warn drivers of upcoming hazards, giving traffic updates, telling them that around the bend I'm applying my brakes because you can't see my brake lights because you're turning the corner. That in itself will offer significant benefits to enable safer, more efficient driving. It will reduce congestion on some of our roads, even help with finding that ever elusive parking space and going to the right parking thing. But with that, along with everything else, comes the challenge of what happens when that car decides what the FNOL process is. What happens when that car decides and the claims process becomes digital as a result of the car being the reporter of that first notice of loss. I think that's the challenge for the ecosystem, is to identify how do I become part of that digital ecosystem. So actually that car communicates and is directed to my repair business and not to another repair business. It sounds pie in the sky, but we are privileged. I'm certainly privileged at Thatcham. I see some phenomenal technology. Some of it never actually sees the light of day, but this is a technological shift that is already in many other parts of our lives. Logging onto Google and seeing all of the items that I decided not to buy yesterday running down the right-hand side of a screen. If a car has the sensibility to know that it's been in an impact and has the capability to report first notice of loss, call a recovery truck, or tell the driver, I'm safe to drive, please take me here, that's the game changer around the corner. And that's business intelligence and business owners getting themselves onto that digital ecosystem to make sure they're still part of that future. I think that's the game changer on our doorstep.
Very interesting indeed. And that's, I suppose, where all the implications in terms of the claims process do change, essentially, and who has what role to play in that, and where each individual's role comes into play at what stage. All right, so I appreciate we're very nearly time. Couple of questions come in. So insurance companies are going to be sympathetic to those body shops who are awaiting training courses for ADAS competence. Dean, we sort of said nothing's going to change sort of, overnight, so to speak, or on the journey, but any thoughts there?
My thoughts are just that if you are a repair business that has struggled to find capacity for training, talk to your insurance partners and have that direct conversation. It's going to be down to an individual insurer whether they're sympathetic or not.
Great stuff. Thank you for that, Dean. And Dave Rees has come in with a question about how does the industry as a whole support colleges of further education, essentially. Anything you want to comment on there, Martin, from your perspective? Does a VM get involved with colleges in any way, shape or form?
Well, I think it does. I think from a manufacturing point of view, there's a huge amount of investment in terms of manufacturing apprentices, etc. But I think we all probably need to look at what's going to hit us, and we need to all look at areas of development of technicians going forward and non-technical training going forward. Definitely.
I mean, it's a combined effort from industry. It doesn't just land on one person's doorstep, does it?
Yeah.
A combined effort. So some great chat coming through as well. Send your messages in there. Let us know your thoughts, anything that you've got to say, again, what you thought of the session. So just coming round each of you respectively. So from your perspective, what would kind of be your message to market in view of everything we've discussed at the moment? Jill, I'll come to you first. Again, you're at the cutting edge of all this. You're seeing it, you're doing it, you're living and breathing it every day. What would you say to the industry right now in terms of that technology requirement?
I think going back to training again, I think we need to forge better links between the manufacturers, the trade skilled solutions companies, anybody that's dealing with schools, education, young people. Let's try and get something in place, because at the moment there are apprenticeships through manufacturers, but there aren't apprenticeships going through body shops that allow for the development of technology. So, and there are very few places on the manufacturer apprenticeship schemes, and if you get one, you are very lucky.
Okay, great stuff. Martin, over to you.
Well, I think, as an industry, this is a great industry. We've moved on leaps and bounds, and we cope with a number of challenges, no more than this last year. It's a really, really tough situation, but the industry copes with it. I've been privileged really with my approved repair network. I've got a fantastic group of approved repairers, absolutely superb and really, really loyal. And I think where we need to be is we need to look at the current situation and the the development of all of these products, electric vehicle, and how we train and how we repair these vehicles. But we've got to remember that, insurers, manufacturers and body shops need to really work together, and we need insurers need manufacturers and body shops need insurers and manufacturers, and we all need each other. So what we need to do is really get behind this technology and accept it. If a car needs to go back to an approved repairer, put it back in that approved repairer. And we will then deal with it, and technology, as technology changes, it will be repaired in the right way, because after all, it's all about our customers, and that's what we need to do. Where it needs to be repaired, that's where it needs to be repaired. And let's get transparent. Let's get transparent about what the rules are and the best processes and practices around that. But it's all about, to me, it's all about looking at that. These are our customers, and let's do the right thing by our customers.
Great message, great message. And Dean, final word from yourself?
Yeah, I just encourage anybody that's listening not to be overwhelmed, because it's very easy to become overwhelmed by this and actually feel forced mentally to bury your head in the sand because you think there's just no other choice. I'd like to start on COVID, because it's been a very difficult 12 months for everybody in the repair sector. That's completely understood. It's definitely been something that's had to take the attention of business owners, directors and managers within the sector. But to believe that this will end and there will be a return to volume at some point, and some definitely are predicting that we may see even greater volumes than we're traditionally seeing for some period of time. But let's be absolutely aware. Let's know that these volumes will be filled with this technology that we've been talking about today, all of these technologies and the challenges we've highlighted here. I would highly recommend we take the opportunity now, while there are reduced volumes. It provides you the opportunity to ready your business for that technology. And finally, take on an apprentice. If every body shop took on an apprentice and invested in the future of the industry, we could resolve the skills crisis very, very rapidly. But if we don't invest in apprentices, if the sector does not invest in its next generation, it's soon going to find that it's a disaster just waiting to happen. And I think I want to go back to Jill's message right at the start. She can see that gap in her own business. She can see the difference between the 20-year-olds and the 50-something-year-olds, and sees very little in the middle. And if she sees a lot more 50-year-olds than she's currently seeing 20-year-olds, she can see for herself the challenge that's going to face for that business going forward. So that's my last and final perspective. Everybody listening, just recruit one apprentice, 2 if you can.
God, now he's really getting pushy. Right, fantastic thoughts. Right, okay, just jump across, and we will come back to you guys in a second. So there was our session for today. Wednesday, so we're back on Wednesday and Friday, 2 sessions a day. So Wednesday, an insurer evolution. We speak to Gillian Ferguson, head of motor claims, Zurich Insurance, 10:30 till 11. And then we've got an audience with some of our ARC360 partners, corporate partners and partners. Jump in the room. You can then disperse, go and visit our partners respectively. You get 3 opportunities to sit with them for 15 minutes and listen to what they've got to say. So just find out a bit more about those guys. Be a great session, great opportunity to engage with those partners of ours who will be there. A huge thank you, as always, to our corporate partners, BASF, BMS, CAPS, Cobart, Emax, Integral, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, Merca, Nationwide Vehicle Recovery Assistance, S&G Response, and Sherwin-Williams, as well as our partners, Aztec, the Green Parts Specialist in DARSA, Presco UK, and the Innovation Group. Huge thank you, of course, to Martin. Really appreciate your time, my friend. Now go out and enjoy the mountains behind you. Looks lovely out there. Dean, thank you very much indeed for your time. And of course, yourself, Jill, really appreciate all your contributions. It's been a fantastic discussion. And again, the message is there as an industry. We will get through this. Take care, everybody. Thanks very much for your time and have a great afternoon. Catch up with you all soon. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.